We can welcome the speakers of today, Wilbert and Victor.
We're talking about today about the apps and the VAT and the problems from Holland, which you can expect. But who are we? Now, Wilbert is a tax advisor, VAT expert, judge in The Hague, lecturer in Amsterdam, and he's one of the most specialized VAT professors in Holland. And I am Victor, and I am strategic management and legal consultant, and I have 30 years experience in the ICT world and organization change management. What's the problem of today? The problem is most Dutch app developers do not pay or don't know that they don't pay correctly the app sales. And we are coming today to explain that to you. But first, a view of the market, the world market in the operating systems, and I think you all will know that, but I will tell it anyway. On the lowest step of the ladder is Microsoft, with 3%. They have now announced a new device. They occupied Nokia to enter this market, but at the moment they are not very successful. Even BlackBerry is more successful, but then you have Apple, it's 20%, and the top is Google Android, almost 75% operating system, which all of the apps are running on. Well, Wilbert will explain now. Yes, please.
Okay.
The European-based VAT rules.
Yeah, I'm going to explain you the situation about VAT rules and B2B transactions, business-to-business transactions. And most of you are thinking that you're dealing only with businesses, so maybe this is the most important part of the study. The main rule is that all electronic supplies or services are taxed with VAT. In principle, with Dutch VAT, 21%. However, there are, of course, exceptions. And those exceptions must, of course, be proved. So if you have an administration, you have to have proof that 21% is not due anymore, but the zero rate or tax reverse in another country is applicable. And with respect to B2B transactions, there are three possibilities. First of all, the Dutch buyer. There's a Dutch buyer, there's a Dutch seller, and a Dutch buyer. In the case of that, then 21% should be taxed, should be accounted for, should be placed on the invoice, and should be, of course, contributed to the tax authorities. If there's an EU buyer, so there's a buyer established in one of the other 27 countries within the EU, you need a VAT number. Because in that case, the VAT is reversed. There is a reverse charge. Instead that you charge 21%, the buyer has to account for the VAT and has to self-assess the VAT in its own country. And that's the reason why on the invoice the VAT number of the buyer is mentioned. The name and address and the city of the buyer needs to be provided, needs to be sent to the tax authorities, because you have to file a VAT return and you also have to file an EU sales listing, mentioning all the VAT numbers you supplied to and the turnover you received from that buyer. If you don't do this, it's 21%. So it's very easy. Or you do it and you can zero rate, reverse charge the VAT. Or you don't, then it's 21%. And of course the buyer will complain. Or they just don't pay the VAT. That's much easier. And if you have a non-EU buyer, no VAT is due at all. The place of supply is established abroad, not within the EU. There's no VAT anymore due. But of course you have to prove that you supplied your goods, your apps, to a non-EU buyer. This is the main rule. Now the other main rule, and the other main rule is for the business to consumer situations. If you are dealing with consumers, again in principle 21% VAT is due if you are a Dutch supplier. And now there are two situations. If you have an EU buyer and it is a consumer, you have to charge 21%. 21% Dutch VAT will be due. And only if the buyer is established abroad, outside the European Union, you don't have to charge VAT. Huh? What's now the problem? Because why is now the VAT a ticking time bomb for you? There is a misunderstanding. And the first misunderstanding is that you think that you only do business with other companies abroad. And so, of course, it's obvious because you think, okay, I have an agreement with another company abroad. They are getting all the money for our apps I supplied. Yeah? I have a VAT number maybe from the company abroad. But the company abroad is most of the time only servicing your apps. It is a supplier to you and you are not supplying the app to him. So this is the problem. Oh, what's happening now? So if you have a portal abroad, you are supplying the app. You are not supplying the app to the portal, but you are supplying the app directly to the consumer. And of course you receive the money from another business, a portal, abroad. Yeah? But that doesn't mean that he takes the app from you. He is only a supplier to you, and you are the supplier of the app. So that means that if you have an EU portal, you still will be due 21% VAT because it's an EU consumer you're supplying to. And only if the consumer is abroad, outside the European Union, you don't have to charge VAT, you don't have to pay VAT in the Netherlands. So this is the first misunderstanding, important misunderstanding. And the second misunderstanding is, how much is your turnover? Because you think, okay, I'm supplying those apps and maybe you have already charged VAT on it, you received it from a portal, but you only receive, for instance, 70. Instead of the 100, the consumer paid. Because the 30 is withdrawn by the portal for his services. So what should be taxed for VAT? The 100 that has been supplied to the consumer. Because that's the payment he made for his app. And you are paying, in principle, to the portal. And not the other way around. Well, this is the most important two misunderstandings. Of course, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult because it could be that there are some VAT exemptions involved. Then you don't have the right to deduct the VAT, the input VAT, but let's keep it simple. And these are the main issues at stake at this moment. Victor?
Well, what Wilbert just said is if you don't have proof of valid specifications for the tax revenue services, you have to pay 21% over the whole turnover. So the proof is the most important thing. When is this almost no issue? Well, there we have Apple, of course. Apple is business to business. This is the situation where you as an app developer are doing business with another entrepreneur, and that's Apple. Now, well, you know, Apple acts as a commissioner. That means he is taking all your rights. He is, selling the app, taking it in from you, has a review on it, I believe, if there are bugs in it or virus or etc. They are taking that responsibility. The app developer delivers the app to Apple, so that's easy. And Apple charges indeed 25%. So you get the information from Apple to live up to the Dutch rules of VAT, and well, those instructions are most important for you, but it is all easy to follow. And Apple submits indeed 15% VAT of their services to you in Luxembourg. Apple Ireland is selling the app to the buyer, and they sell it to the consumer in most cases, but they also have an B2B handling, as you know. You get a sales report from Apple, and you can justify almost all your transactions, so almost your whole turnover. Well, there is a little snake, because if you're selling your apps in those countries, and that's a large part of the world, then, well, you don't get the information where the app was sold. So it is very important for you to know who were my clients, and also that information must be provided by Apple. Where are the problems? And that is in the Google environment, because Google sees only a business to consumer construction, and that is you as an app developer delivering an app to a consumer. There is no business to business handling what they are supporting. So VAT numbers are not exchanged. The app developer is personally responsible for the submission and remittance. That is the agreement you have with Google. And that means VAT over the entire turnover, as we have told you, including the transaction costs, including costs for payment services, including costs for telco services. But you don't know who else is involved, because you are thinking I'm dealing only with Google. But there are more service providers in the chain. The information you get from Google is insufficient. Insufficient for live up to the rules of paying your tax correctly. It's unclear if the buyer is a consumer or an entrepreneur. The VAT and identification number, as I told you, is not supplied. There is insufficient financial information. You don't know who has bought where and what from you. There are some information, but not enough. There is unclear if taxes are paid by Google or not. Google is paying taxes in the USA if you are a USA app developer, but you're not. You're living in Holland. So what are they doing in your benefit? There is no information about possible intermediate payments, as I told you, telco, other in-betweens. The information also online, if you look online for the instructions of Google, is incomplete and even false. They have wrong examples of how the commission is reckoned, is calculated. It's just very foolish. They can't. It's just false. And information provided online is incorrect. And what does that mean? Well, it does mean that the app developer must be able to prove that you have which revenue is derived from what customer, and inside and outside the European community. It's not possible without proper and complete information and administration from the service provider. The current administration processes most people have are not designed to meet these requirements. And that can lead to taxes being levied over the past 5 years. So if the tax revenue services has an eye on you, they are going back 5 years for your whole turnover and charge you for that, resulting in an additional tax. Don't forget penalties, they are very good at that. And possibly the reclamation of VAT which was incorrectly deducted. If you know what it means, you can deduct VAT normally if you are selling with VAT, but if you are selling an app without the VAT, because it's exempt, then you can't deduct any VAT. So there's many mistakes made in that. Well, this may lead to amounts above the 21 VAT in worst cases, if things have gone wrong in the administration and in the way you're doing business. And where can we help? Well, we can give you, of course, legal advice, especially focused on this problem. We can do, and that means more for some larger organization perhaps, but do a quick scan on some fields. We can draw up a risk reduction plan, including the stakeholders, and also a plan to check out the legal consequences. We can draw up a blueprint of the needed administration and even interface specifications, because I think Google should have a good interface with their app developers, like the bank. You can download your banking details, and it's not possible to to interface that with your own systems. So that should be something which must be developed. A transition plan and implementation of the transition, that means more for larger concerns or networks where everybody wants to have the same way of working in dealing with this problem. Do you have questions?
So if Google doesn't provide that information, how do you go about getting it? Because you need to get it from Google. What's the process of going to get it? Does it require like a legal letter to them?
That's all the next chapter. The thing is, we have addressed a big problem, but we don't have the solution now in front of you. We know how to come to that solution.
Has the tax authority done something about it? Are small developers being convicted for this kind of fraud? Because
Well, it's not fraud. It's I have two clients. They thought that the administration was done by a bookkeeper, an accountant, and they thought that he was filing properly the VAT return. But also the accountant, the bookkeeper, was unknown with the real VAT rules. He thought, well, he's doing with, we have Google, there's a VAT number, receiving from that VAT number the amounts, it's an over, so it's a business-to-business case. The tax authorities, however, saw that the portal abroad, the Google, was only a provider of services. It wasn't buying the apps. So the tax authorities are known with the problem. They exactly know what the rules are.
But what happened?
They cheered.
Cheers, yes. They assessed the VAT amounts for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And that means bankruptcy.
Has anyone tried to appeal that court ruling that Google can only be seen as a portal?
No, but you have an agreement with Google where you accept that they are.
Oh, they really have an agreement like we are
in the
not?
agreement is stated it's your problem, not ours.
Yeah, then
So we have to check your agreements very thoroughly. I think the only organization who is handling this rather well is Apple, and there is no any other who have thought about it in the way they do. They have legal experts there, enough, I believe.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.